Hello, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you're based in the world. It is a pleasure to have you here. And today we have three very special guests and a project that is like dear to my heart because I've seen it evolving and I've seen it growing, I was really uh, amazed by the whole process, by the story behind it, by the team that is actually put this together. So really wanted to welcome here VRXP, Alexander, Khalil, and Nelson and Francisco from Studio Quo. Guys, it is a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for
Very nice.
inviting us, Gabriele.
Absolutely. And one of the things actually that I was most looking forward to is that we don't hear a lot of that much about the South American representation in the XR world. And this was one of the things that kind of like was really looking forward to. And here I do have then a question for actually all the people that are joining. Where are you guys from? How many people are from Brazil, other people from Mexico, other people from Argentina, Chile, or anyway, wherever you are. It will really be a pleasure to actually know. And let's see people now if they can tell us a little bit. And also, so what are we going to talk? Indonesia. Indonesia, guys, it's super late. I think it's something like 3 a.m. or something, or maybe later. So, Indriana, thank you very much for joining. Uh, so what are we going to do today? We do have people from Brazil, Luis, Harry, Toff from the Netherlands. Hello, goedenavond, Toff. And and we have a lot of people in answer community. So what are we going to do today? So first of all, we're going to learn a little bit about Incan Fire, or as I learned, Tinta e Fogo, as in Portuguese. Then we will go through understand a bit what's the project, understand what was the design flow, show some footage that actually, guys, it's uploading right now. It's uploading the latest footage that we got. I just got it 1 minute before, and here we go. Here we go. It's here, downloading now. Downloading now. So the latest footage from the project. And then we are gonna learn, and of course, as usual, ask questions. I've talked a lot. Let's give the floor to our guest. Guys, why don't you give a little bit of introduction about yourself? Alexander, can you start?
Sure. Very briefly, um, I'm usually known by the international community as the guy who administrates the virtual reality group on Facebook. So again, everyone is invited to join the group where I upload the link there. In Brazil, I'm known as Khalil, and my company VRXP, it's just me actually. Uh, I work with three things actually. I have three segments. One that I've been working a lot lately is producing festivals. So there's a lot of barriers in South America to have access to hardware. So I find solutions to have enough headsets for the festivals, prepare the spaces, and all that, which is one of the services I'm working at Incan Fire. Second, since 2015, that's when I started my company. I've been working in developing experiences. I come from education, so I have this conversion of career because of this group I manage, and I've been finding myself where I could actually work as as a company, as someone that could provide services, and I found myself as someone who can design experiences with a lot of passion with UX. That's how I found ShapesXR, and that's why I also suggested to the team uh, to Incan Fire. We're going to talk about that later. And third, pretty much as a consultant, someone who sits with the client and designs new products in XR. I work 100% with XR since 2015, and yeah, that's how much I've been doing in the last few years. And yeah, that's I have this hobby with the community and my work that I've been developing all these years.
So, of course, for anybody that is now listening, if you have a UX challenge, problem, or new project, indeed, I mean, I think contacting Alexander, of course, we're going to see some of the work that the team together with Studio Go has done. So then you have a pretty good impression of how it is to actually work together. And what about you guys, Studio Go, Francisco and Nelson?
Well, everyone, Very good day. It's a real pleasure for us to be here in such an international seminar. I'm Francisco. My name is Francisco Almendra. I'm the CEO at Studio Quo. I have a background in photography and in narrative and also production. So we usually create projects here. We're going to talk a little bit more of the studio in a little bit. But I also had a previous life working with international developments. I used to work at the World Bank and working with climate change. So like topics around environmental uh, topics and sustainability and social issues and culture are very dear to me. So it was a real pleasure to think about this project, to think about our cultural heritage. We have very special stuff in Brazil, and we're going to show it to you in a little bit.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that really hooked me. It was about that historical and the meaning, not just about a beautiful experience. It's about what it represents. And Nelson.
Yeah, so I'm Nelson Porto, and I come from a design background. I am the photogrammetry expert here. So when it comes to scanning things, and this project is heavy on 3D scanning, that's what that's something we really like doing. And Francisco is also a fantastic drone pilot, and he did some amazing aero photogrammetries also. Um, so I also come from the background of photography, and we're so happy to be working with a subject that is so rich and so entertaining. We're going to show you some real precious things that we learned during the process.
And while I do this, because sorry, I didn't want to, because I just want to give the impression to people about what it means. Where was this thing shot? These are the places. I mean, and we're gonna see also some photogrammetry, some videos, and understand how some of those assets, those places, have been captured. Some of those details. So this is just a little glimpse of what we guys are going to see. And one thing that I always encourage everybody: please ask questions, because this is a very valuable reason to be here live with us, because you can actually direct questions to any of the team. So please go ahead regarding the project, regarding the technology, regarding the design, even some professional questions. So don't be afraid of doing that.
So just to say a little bit about Studio Quo, we've been pioneers in VR, like in Brazil, since 2015. We have like over 65 or 70 projects. I lost the count over the last 7 years. And as Nelson was saying, we have this strong tradition of photography and like being like moved by images in the real world, right? So like we don't actually have a gaming background. We're more of a visual arts kind of background. So one of the things that Studio Quote comes with our flavor is to bring the richness of the real world into virtual environments. So that's why we have such a background in photogrammetry and drone shooting and things that we can use as tools to bring the real into the virtual. And that's going to be the basis of Incan Fire, which is the crazy heritage that we're going to see in a little bit. Apart from this project, Studio Quo is also producing other projects together with Khalil and with other partners that also use these kinds of techniques. And we also work with 360 video and augmented reality for like big clients in Brazil, more of a B2B side. But the fun part, the part that really moves us, is what we're doing now, and we're very happy to share with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really great, and I think the passion, and when you also manage to bring your expertise and your passion into a new project that is like really represent that, I think that's great. And so, what is this project about? What is Incan Fire? What is Think Time Forward? Who wants to take this and introduce the project?
So I can talk a little bit. So like Incan Fire was a story that came from our desire to travel around Brazil. It's a huge country with a lot of rich landscapes, and we know of this national park that's really far out and really hard to get to, that has the biggest collection of rock arts in the Americas. It's one of the richest archaeological sites in the whole world concerning like rock paintings from they say 8,000 to and 10,000 up to, they say, even 30,000 years old, which is kind of against the theories that we have currently of how people got to the Americas. But it's really rich, and the landscape is amazing. And it's always been a very deep desire from us to go there and use these techniques and bring this richness into our experiences.
Yeah, since it is such a remote place because it's in the northeast region of Brazil, and it's in the countryside of this very remote state. It's very hard for most people of Brazil who live basically in the capitals and in the shore, in the sea line, to go there.
So it's not only about access, right? Because like that's one big thing that we can show to a lot of people, like this really remote place, but it's also about creating this magical space where you can have, instead of going to a museum and having an explanation or reading a book with photographs and like very dry stuff, what we wanted to create was a sensorial kind of experience that we could really relate to our past in a non-verbal way, to have a direct connection with that landscape and to have direct interaction, if we can, with our ancestors, right? The people who were there and who actually used this very ancient technology, which was state of the art at the time, the same way that we use technology today. They were painting the walls. So that was the objective, to bring that side into the experience.
Indeed. So then develop a narrative that would tell that story and the reality about those prehistoric culture, in a way, right? And so then when we look at those scans, and I'm here actually, then I think I'm going to be able to start sharing some footage of those aerial captures that I think were mentioned. So you guys now, you can talk over it. So this is a bit of those. How many pictures?
So those canyons, they're actually about like 150 meters tall, and they're like kilometers long. So we had to fly a lot so we could do aerial photogrammetry, and it was really intense because we were like in one of those ledges somewhere, and you couldn't even see the drone flying. But we were shooting, I don't know, this one maybe like 1,500 photos.
Yeah, around 1,500 photos.
Yeah, so like it depends on the size. That one was about 1,500 photos. And I saw that someone was asking like which tools we use. We use reality capture as a processing tool, and Nelson is going to be talking a lot more about this in a few moments.
Yeah, indeed. So that was indeed one of the questions from Ashish. Actually, let's pick it up. Is that, do you use reality capture? How do you actually have done the capturing and the 3D modeling?
Yeah, we've tried most photogrammetry softwares, and reality capture is absolutely the best and the fastest. And ever since they've been purchased by Epic Games, they are cheaper also. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. It's top quality.
Yeah, Gabriele, there's also a video that we just uploaded that maybe you can show that has the whole workflow of how we took
it's Caverna photogrammetry, Caverna workflow, something like that.
Is it the same folder?
Yes.
Okay, let's see what I can do. Photogrammetry workflow. Yeah, I do have it. Let me see, guys. If you give me 1 second, we're gonna see this. Meanwhile, keep the question coming. Here we are live. Right? I mean,
there's another question that I can address about the advancement of nerfs. We just saw that NVIDIA released a model of a fast nerf, and it's really interesting. The quality is amazing, but so far the output is only video, and we still, someday this might be a good replacement for photogrammetry, and perhaps there will be a different workflow for integration of nerfs inside VR experiences, but so far we don't have access to a 3D model.
Right. So thank you very much for picking up the question from Amon. And I am meanwhile getting the footage. Let me get this new one I've got. Let me see if I can Workflow, I think it's this one. Give it a
Yes.
second to upload. Um, and right, there are also some question. Question number two. We are capturing the world with higher and higher fidelity from a social perspective. How does this will affect our relationship with traveling, tourism, culture, and nature? This is a very deep question, Imon. I think it's an interesting point.
I might have an answer for that,
Yeah,
which
please.
which comes together with the goal we have for Incan Fire, and we're going to talk about that more soon. But basically, what we want from the user once they take off the headset is to be inspired by the story and by rock art and by this atmosphere. So I think with this, the relationship people will have with traveling, tourism, and culture with a more or a higher fidelity is basically be inspired to visit that place in person or to get to know that place more. So it's basically what we're achieving with Incan Fire, and that's what people will, in the end, have in common. I don't think they will. This higher fidelity will replace visiting, but that will get people inspired and perhaps make them, because just seeing and listening is not enough to be fully immersed. You have to have more inputs. Like I just told you before we started the live. You said it's 3 degrees Celsius there. You're wearing that jumper.
Heavy sweater, yes.
While in Brazil right now, you add a zero next to this three. It's what it is now for me. It's 30
Right.
degrees. So in an image and the sound, we won't give you that feedback. But you get you inspired to travel and live it more intensively.
Right. And I think that
There we
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
Oh.
This is the cave. It's one of the sceneries that we experienced firsthand in the experience. Those are the pictures. You can see it's a lot of pictures inside the environment so that we could capture a really high quality model. And it was a dark setting, so we had to be really careful with this capture. We were using a monopod. This cave was in a remote area, and we had to hike all day to get there. This is the 65 million polygons triangles model, and this is already a reduction to 5 million. From this point on, we can actually see the mesh. This is already a bit reduced and with the texture applied, so you can see the level of realism that you can achieve when you do the photogrammetry of such an environment. The texture here is at really high quality. Now we're going to see the magic. This is the retopology model, so you can see it's really low poly. And then you have the reprojection of this texture to the low poly model, and this is already inside Unreal Engine. And together with normal maps, together with normal maps and ambient occlusion maps, we are able to retain a lot of the detail and also with a lot of the textures. And this is already the scene inside Unreal with proper lighting, and still work in progress, but you can see the fire and you can see the shadows and also the paintings that are going to shine during one of the magical moments in the experience. And you can see the effect is very realistic, but this is playing very easily inside the Oculus Quest 2.
right, right. So one question that I also personally have is that retopology was that done manually
Yes.
the retopology of the model? Okay,
Yes. And the approach we're having is from the ground up. So we have the really high resolution model that we can always reference. But when we do the retopology, we go like to the lowest possible level of recognition. And from there, we build up in the places that we need more geometry. We recover the geometry only in the necessary places.
okay, okay. And there is a problem. There's a process based on experience and your own knowledge, and to know where and what and how. And then, of course, you also need to have a good capture in the first place.
Yeah, something to add to that. I think that this approach was necessary also because we took very early on the design choice to create the experience for Quest. So it's a mobile experience. This is really important because like we wanted to use hand tracking and be able to paint with our own hands, right? So
Right.
we took that design decision right in the beginning. So then geometry and like the weight of each scene becomes very, very important. So we don't lose frame rates. And of course, if we were doing this for like a higher version, say for an international festival, which is going to be probably like the next thing that we're going to talk about in the end, we will definitely be able to have like even more geometry and have even more details. But since this is for mobile, because we're going to take it for like public exhibitions in Brazil and abroad and put it online, um, we had to take care of this huge amount of information coming in from photogrammetry, not to overload just with the scenery, because we also have characters, we also have interactions, we also have a lot of
Animations, music,
animations and
effects,
stuff, and that
lots
gets
of things happen.
expensive very fast.
Yeah.
Particles.
Right? So
Absolutely. I do have one more question that in this case I want to answer more. I want to ask Alexander is one of the biggest things I've struggled with my students is bringing people that have no background in coding programming into working with VR. How did you guys bridge that in this case with Studio Go? But I think Alexander, maybe it would be like a good question to ask you. How do you bridge that? What are the possibilities for people that don't have that background?
Yeah, so
Alexander.
the short answer is you
no.
need to find a programmer, but in reality, you have to get to know the workflows, right? I don't really believe that an artist is going to become a very prolific programmer unless he has a specific talent for that. But I do believe anybody can learn the workflows and the top view and understand
Right.
how things are supposed to happen, so that they have the necessary vocabulary and understanding to talk to a programmer, talk to a specialized 3D artist, and bring the things together, right?
Yeah,
At
and
the
maybe
same-
Alexander, and
Yeah.
Alexander, from your perspective, how is that? Because you also are not coding, but yet contributing to the project from the design and user perspective. What advice would you give to Brian?
For Brian, I would let you know that I could be one of your students. I have no knowledge in coding or programming. Just I'm aware how it works, of course, because of my gaming background and because I started working to develop experiences. I learned a little bit, which is enough for me so that I can follow the project in a responsible way. But if you don't have this knowledge in coding, like I did, how I found myself in the VR market. So how could I get started? New demands like one of them was to produce festivals. By producing festivals, setting up the spaces, watching people use the experiences, I realized that I loved to see how people would react to experiences, which means what are they doing? I will ask myself how they develop these experiences so that people could have this reaction. So I started getting into UX just by producing festivals, working with hardware. So one way I found myself in the XR market providing services is getting to design. So really caring about people using XR and not really much about coding. So what I do is I think of the experience. I think how the experience can be impactful, meaningful, memorable, um, and that's what I do. I design them, and then I have to work with the programming team, with the 3D artists, all that. But I need to know their work as well, so that we have such fluency and proper workflow and everything,
Exactly.
clear communication, and we're going to talk about that with mentioning ShapesXR, which is
Yes.
pretty much bring communication to the team, people who don't code, people who code, and how they work together with visual feedback. Anyway, I think design is one way you could um, take your students towards into getting developing experiences in XR.
and this is a good point in multiple ways. If I can just add something, the first is, before you start coding, you need to think about a lot of things, right? And you need people that have the right skill to start thinking about the story. About, it's not just how impactful, how beautiful it is, but also how usable that is. I mean, do I know where I have to go, where I have to look? So there is a lot that has to be done. And so, in short, I think, Brian, as well, if your students want to go in XR, I think Shapes, it's a good way to start. You get in a space, collaborative, you start putting stuff together, and you don't need that coding. Then, of course, afterward, you can get the stuff out, and you can put it in Unity to get them to understand more about it, how the scene was assembled. Again, and Francisco, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to talk about our own experience, because we started working with VR without having ever worked with VR before. We just started, right? So we started with 360 video, and we understood from a visual perspective what it is to be under immersion, right? So we started to understand the relationship of the user with the space around him, and we slowly started to add like interactive elements to our experiences. And over time, we took that knowledge that's related to presence and immersion, which is very different from a straight traditional audiovisual perspective, if you're coming from imagery as we were, right? And then from that point on, we started adding like interactive elements, and we had to start working with game engines because of that, because we wanted to make the switch from video to full interactivity. And our biggest ally in all of this, I'm sure that's probably the same with everyone here, is YouTube. Because like we see other people having similar challenges and having creative solutions to a lot of different things. And we basically learn a lot at not the full edge, like the people who are actually coding like the first wave of innovation, but like right the next wave, there's a lot of people who are taking in these new tools and new techniques and are trying to make them work. And that's where we usually work. We're not the guys inventing the new equipment or the new like whatever code, but we apply that in our real life and our experiences.
And all the tools,
ecosystem.
All the tools are becoming more designer and artist friendly, and more tools are coming. Just like ShapesXR is a fantastic tool for this, because one of the biggest difficulties that ShapesXR, in my opinion, bridges is that you're able to bring your own assets inside. So if you can download assets from the internet or whatever, you can just bring them in and put them wherever you want, and you can simulate the environment and the experience, and it's already a very useful tool.
Let's do this, because I think that the best way of doing it is actually to show it, is to be there, right? What do you think?
Let's do that.
Yeah,
let's do that. So let's go in to the space. I have got it, and then we're gonna share it with people in. Let me. So people are gonna have an impression of what it is and what to expect. Guardian every time. Okay, so let me just get this going. And by the way, I hope that the people that are in the audience had the chance to actually try the latest update from last week, because it is huge and it has a lot of good stuff. So if you haven't downloaded ShapesXR from the store, this is the time.
I need to pay you a compliment, Gabriele, for the ShapesXR team. How fast you deliver new content and new features. I could even say it's hard to keep track. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we are just getting started. So I am already in space, and let me start. Let's mute ourselves. Indeed, good point. And let me share my screen with the people.
Just waiting for you.
Here we are. Share. And
so while we wait, something that we can talk about a little bit.
Mute yourself.
The design challenges that we actually had creating the experience. And maybe we can touch on that while the feed is not there yet.
Yes, here we are. Let's all make sure that we all mute ourselves so that we, yeah, here we go.
All right. Is everyone here on scene?
Yes, here I am.
Scene one.
Yeah, Alexander, or who's gonna guide us through?
Chico, Francisco, and I. Francisco
Okay.
will do the walkthrough, and I will comment on some design decisions.
Perfect. Go ahead,
All right.
Francisco.
All right, perfect. So, okay, we started a void. We're here on scene one. So, something to keep in mind, there's always a green person and a red person. And that's what we use shorthand for where the user is going to start each scene and
Right.
where we expect the user to end that scene. And if you look to the bottom, there's a blue square.
Right.
This is a 3 by 3 meter square that's actually the physical play area that we're going to have in our like real world exhibition, right? There's going to be a 3 by 3 space that each user is going to have for the experience. So if we jump to scene two, it's actually the first scene.
Before we
Alexander.
go to the second scene, maybe I could comment on a few things here. Why the reason we have the void is a way of introducing the experience, but not telling the user about what's coming next. It's like an element of surprise. And the reason
Right.
we have the touch hologram here is a way of introducing the interaction they're going to use throughout the experience, which is
right, the
using
hand.
their hands.
Mhm.
So that's we're gonna
These things that you have to touch.
we're gonna
Right.
introduce this contrast of technology and the past. So we have all holograms and the touching. So today in our life we touch screens, and near the future of AR and other technologies we're going to be touching holograms hopefully. And then but our story is telling about people painting with their hands. So the design or the interaction is pretty much the same. So this is pretty
Right.
much the introduction of the
The
interaction.
story as well. Yeah.
All right. So there we go. We move on to the next scene. This is where the experience actually starts. So ShapesXR was used mainly as a way for us to figure out physical layout, a way to understand like how the user has a relationship inside the experience with the physical space that we're gonna have, right? So here we have like, it's a huge museum. We start here, and there's a little robot that comes and becomes our virtual guide. And this semicircle in front of us is actually a holographic display. So the little robot comes and introduces us, say, welcome to the experience. This is an exhibit about rock arts and archaeology. Let me show you the holographic kind of part of the exhibit. So you go forward and he invites you to touch like this first section here, which is number one. And
Right.
like the whole display lights up and you see 3D imagery of, huh? So like you see all kinds of stuff about the 3D models that we captured, but it's still very much a kind of a museum setting. So you keep going through these different phases, 1, 2, 3 here.
Right.
And as you're moving this way, the little robot goes through a glitch. There's a short circuit. You don't really understand what's going on, but the little robot falls onto the ground. And then like it explodes and one piece falls into this method over here, which is actually a bonfire, like a bonfire, a fossil bonfire that's also on display. And once it starts to light up and the whole light of the museum has turned dark because of the short circuits, the fire projects this shadow of a shaman on the opposite wall. So if you look that way exactly, this little doodle there is actually like the shaman that shows up as a shadow and starts playing like an instrument, kind of a shaker instrument, like this. And then
Right.
it takes you back into the past. And that's what transitions you from one scene to the next. So So like we're gonna move to the next scene, and we arrive at the first real scene that happens in nature, right? It's a scene from the past. This is all a mock-up, but we start here looking at the fire where the explosion was happening and where the shovel was before, and we explore a little bit of the setting, and then we hear the shaker again. It's a little instrument, and then you look to the right here, and you see a shadow of a little child that shows up, and she greets you. She
Right,
says,
right. And just also for have the people understanding, the user in this moment was looking at that side. So then what he's gonna see in the next one is that he sees like the landscape, and in order to guide the attention, there is a shadow that it kind of like moves, and then consequently will guide the attention and will have the user to turn. Right? It's just to really explain through my eyes to the people that are watching.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So then the child comes over here. There's like a little person there, like in green. Actually, like I don't know what color is that, but like it walks through to the other side, and it goes all the way here, and it teaches you how to paint on the wall. So like it comes here
Right.
to this sink here, and it puts the hands here, and it puts the hands on the walls right here. So it calls you to switch from you switch and you walk over to the other side and you do the same. And this is the first time that you actually paint. Like the child is teaching you how to print your hands on the wall. So the user comes here and prints. Fala, Calil.
No, it's all good.
So good. Would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, there are a few things like I could say about the bonfire being a reference, permanent reference throughout the experience as well. We have it in the same place. If you go back to number 2 very
Yeah,
quickly,
I'm doing it.
and then we switch number 3, it's going to be in the same place.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of messed up around right now for some reason, but yeah.
no, it's fine. It's in the same spot. And the reason we're doing this is because the fire in the name is in the name of the experience, Incan Fire. So it has its importance. It is a reference, and is the orange of the guide, which is the shadow. So
Right.
it's not only the guidance for the user how to and for us to design the experience, how they will move around the scene, but also for the story. It's always a reference, a guidance, and the source of the guidance, which is the shadow. There's
Yeah.
this also. Oh, sorry, I think I moved the scene. We need to lock the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forgot to do it. But
Can
anyway,
you undo, Alexander?
so then you print your hands here on this wall, and once you do that, it transitions you magically to the next scene. So let's go
Right.
to scene 4. So, like once again, you start. It's a little bit messed up, but yeah, you start at green. So here, so this is the cave setting, right? We are like inside the shaman's cave, and here what happens is the shaman comes and shows himself as a shadow here, and he says hi to you. He raises his hand, and as you raise you raise your own hand as a salutation, the shaman walks all the way across the walls and comes over to this other side. And once he arrives on the other side, he teaches you how to really paint. So there's another thing and a place here that you can dab your hands on, and the shaman does that movement and he starts painting on the walls here, like where he is, and then he invites you to come and do the same. So then you walk over to further in. Yeah, it's a little bit messed up because I think it's a little bit disconnected from the wall now. But in any case, you do the same and you start painting on the walls here as well. And once you start doing that, you have like 45 seconds doing that, and the shaman is waiting for you. And after a certain point, he starts to create magic again with his shaker, and then all the other painting starts to reveal around the walls around you. So that's kind of like the scene that we saw a little bit earlier that we showed you. There was a shadow on the wall, and there were like a lot of things painting shining.
And all these things were kind of like quickly like sketched like this, basically using the brush tool or other things. So this was all in this case besides the environment itself, of course, it was used as a reference, but this was all created with ShapesXR assets, right? These
Yes.
shapes,
Mhm.
yeah.
So then you go through another transition. We're going to the next scene.
Deixa eu fazer um comentário.
Oh, Nelson wants to make a comment.
Yeah, so it was perfect for us to have all these pre-made assets so that we could signal things and see things in perspective and have them in the right proportion, decide the exact size the assets should have, and so many other decisions related to the space. Because you see, our team, two of us are in Rio de Janeiro, one of us is in Ribeirão Preto, and one of us is in another city in our state, and our main developer is in another region in the south, in Porto Alegre. So we had all these meetings inside the environments, and it was really like, it saved us like months of trying to communicate exactly what our intentions were.
Exactly.
As a reference, if you are in Europe, you'll be working in different countries. But still in Brazil, it's just in different states.
Yes. A matter of perspective. Absolutely.
So,
Distances get a whole different meaning. Yeah, this is amazing. This is really how we intend people to use it, like where you can also work both at the same time, but also like share a space where you have created something, get someone to check it out, maybe send you a feedback. So having this persistent space where people can access and they can create, add comments, really adds a new dimension to when it's about collaborating, about and trying and creating XR content.
Right. So this has been so useful for us because like we were really having a hard time to explain to the team like the whole issues of like we have to make the user move within a 3x3 meter physical space, and we had to create the whole kind of scene setting and the asset placement having a fixed square on the ground that we could reference as our physical space. Like the user is not going to be able to move more than that, even though the environments are much bigger than that. We have to create the illusion that the user has that freedom, but actually we're inviting him narratively. We have to direct the user to
the right place.
Yeah, to the right places so he doesn't go out of his physical play area.
Yeah. By the way, there have been a couple of questions that I want to pick up very quickly. Just Gabriele, do you plan to add animation and actionable transition in ShapesXR soon? I cannot say anything. I should just say stay tuned because some of that stuff, it's in the work. It's in the work. I cannot say anything. I cannot say date, but stay tuned. And Anurag asks, can we join too? Yes, in theory you could join, but in order to keep this going, because we're already running out of time, I would discourage you to. Sorry, Anurag, but you can always join one of our onboarding session. You can check them on the website. They are a lot of fun and they're very useful in that sense. Guys, so let's go through a few more stages.
Let's go quickly here. It's almost at the end. So we go to scene 5.
Yes.
Here, like we start overlooking a beautiful landscape that's not being placed yet. Here we see vista being set there, and it's kind of like the same thing. Like the shadow of a hunter comes, and he shows us some specific paintings, and as we interact with them, he shows us the animals that he has killed and hunted, right? So like once we get to the third animal, it's a giant sloth. It's a megatherium, like one of those prehistoric animals that unfortunately are not with us anymore. And as we interact with him, like a lot of other shadows from other hunters come, and we go to a hunt together. Everybody's like raising their hands, going crazy, and we shoot to the final scene, which we're gonna move right now, which is scene 6.
Right. And so I'm here.
So this is a little bit of a mess still, but here is the first time that you see like a live giant sloth. This is just a skeleton. We're gonna have a live sloth here, and it's gonna be a slow motion scene, so everything happens very, very slowly. And then you're gonna be like in the middle of a hunt, and there are gonna be people jumping on top and trying to
right.
on him. and people like using spheres from here. And it was really important to use shapes to figure out the scale of things. How far or how near can we get to a giant slot without going nuts? Or how close can you be without actually being able to touch anything because we don't want you to like touch the giant slot like the other hunters. So it was a very important layout tool for the team to understand like where we should place the assets and how we could interact with the scene happening around us.
Right. And sometimes you've seen people actually that maybe puppeteers, so like they create, okay, they do like, from here, like,
Exactly.
there's the sounds, and they kind of like, maybe gets imagine in slow motion, it does like, and then they start kind of like playing around like this is a Lego set to give life to the scene.
It's exactly what we did. So like this is the big final scene, and then the next one we're actually back into the museum.
Right.
Back to reality.
And here we have the skeleton again. So we transition from the hunt where like the giant sloth is there live, and then we come to a situation where it's in the same position but it's a skeleton, and then that's where we wrap the whole experience, almost like coming back from a dream, coming back from this fantastic experience that you had in the past. And then like the little robot that kind of turns on again and says goodbye, like, wow, what a crazy experience I went through. I don't know what happened with you, but I hope you had a good time in the exhibit and that you come again soon. So yeah, I think this is kind of like the wrap.
Thanks for bringing us through this journey. And I mean, I think it's interesting to see how all that story kind of like still unfolds within this design, right? So at the end, all these decisions that you guys have made are so critical. So that's great. Let's go out. Let's indeed go out. Let me remove this. And I think
so
right now
you could play the video.
Yes, absolutely.
The last video that shows a little bit more of the footage, and then we can
Experiência,
talk about,
right?
Yes.
Experiência.
Yeah.
That one.
Olhe para suas mãos. Durante milhares de anos, foi com elas que interagimos com tecnologias como pintura e fogo. Para iniciar, por favor, toque no holograma brilhando. Os primeiros habitantes das Américas chegaram aqui há cerca de 15 a 20 mil anos e deixaram pistas que hoje nos ajudam a desvendar seus antigos modos de vida. Sabemos
And that was indeed the shaman, right? The one that was in that wall. And you guys, if you want to say something, you can unmute yourself.
Sorry,
We're just saying this is a work in progress, so a lot of the visuals are still improving, many of the assets. You see the shadow, you have to acknowledge the shadow and say hello. It's teaching you to paint. This is inside the cave now.
Right.
You can see it working with the fire. We have an owl. And it's a very dramatic setting. You can see that the light is already glimmering. This is still in low texture, but it's already painting with your own hands, which is going to be really interesting. So this is the last scene, concept art for the last scene, the slow moving rain. The light is flaring from the torches. We still don't have the hunters there, but
or the real sloth, but it's kind of like a placeholder we're still working on. And we're really excited about this work, and I hope to show you guys the results very soon.
And this is also one of the follow-up questions then, or how you guys plan to actually distribute this. So what's for the Incan Fire?
So very quickly, like Incan Fires has been planned from the beginning to be an exhibit for general public. So people are going to go on a location, and there's going to be a big exhibition where the centerpiece is going to be the VR experience, and you're going to be able to like book and like experience the whole thing. And there's also going to be physical correspondence between the painting parts of the experience. So as you put your hand in the little a cubicle where the ink is, there's actually going to be a physical thing that you're going to wet your hands in, and you're going to be able to use your hands to paint, and it's going to hit like
A surface.
a surface there. So that side is really nice, and it's also going to have a heat source. Like remember that Alexandre was saying that the bonfire is always on the same place physically.
Right.
There's a heat source there, and it's always going to be in a way that you can feel the heat from the fire, right? So that's one piece of the exhibit. We're
Yeah.
going to have 3 to 5 stations so people can have Incan Fire at the same time. And we're going to have also a photography exhibit that's going to be with augmented reality. So you're going to be able to see the photos of the most iconic and important paintings of these archaeological sites. But as you point your phone to them, the 3D surface is going to appear. So you can see how these age-old artists were using the surface of the rock in creative ways, and you're going to be able to see that with your own phone. And
Right.
the same goes with like the aerial photogrammetry that shows the landscape and the canyons and the caves where our ancestors lived. We're going to be able to see that in 3D as well with our phones. So we're
So
basically
there is it's a bigger thing.
It's a
It's not
bigger
just
thing.
I
Yes.
put on the headset and I do it. That's it. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're
And,
considering a version so that we can distribute on Oculus and Steam VR so that people can
Right.
try it at home. But this is our first goal with the Incan Fire to have this whole exhibition.
Yeah.
set
And
up.
Alexander, a question. When designing this experience, was it something that was done? Did you have a specific audience in mind, or was like designed for everybody, like old, young, gamers? I mean, what kind of user portrait you had in mind?
Because this is an experience we got from an open call in São Paulo State, we
Mhm.
have to aim this for the general public, just for
Right.
our general audience. But we have to have in mind part of the interactions. We're considering different heights for people. So
Right.
kids, like when they're not kids, but teenagers, 12, 13, which is the age we tend to have for with the headsets. But yeah, just general public. That's the way we start with the exhibitions because of this open call we got in first place, by the way, in São Paulo State. Yeah,
Nice. And one question that I had is, so there is these events, right, where there are different parts to it, right, as I understand. So one of the question I had is also, so what's your intent or ideas? Do you see the opportunity to distribute this outside? And if so, is there a language barrier in that?
you can answer that, Francisco, if you want.
Oh, me, okay, no, I thought that you were going to talk about the international side. So yes, we're going to have versions in English and other languages, considering like where we're going to send Incan Fire to. If there's an opening in China, we're going to have a Chinese version of stuff.
It's a experience that is very much non-verbal. The only part that we actually have some verbal content is right at the beginning and right at the end. The rest of it is only gestures, and it's very more of a corporal, physical experience.
Right.
Where you use your body to interact.
Yeah.
We're definitely
So,
going
like-
international with the experience because the theme allows that. It's not a Brazilian thing
Very
we're going to explore.
universal.
It's universal.
Right. So like our plan is to have probably an upgraded version for international festivals. We're definitely going to place Incan Fire in the main festivals in the US and Europe. And we're also going to publish it on online stores, be it Steam, Oculus, right? So
Okay.
there's definitely going to be international distribution as well over time. First, we have to like end this first cycle
Of exhibition.
for the grants, because there's a specific scope that we have to deliver
Right.
there, and then we're going to have the international side of things for sure. And we're really excited about the potential, especially because it is very much non-verbal, so there's very little as a language barrier, just the beginning explanation that we're going to have in different languages. And the second thing is that it's a universal theme, and it's not only universal across cultures, but it's also universal around different ages. Like my grandmother, she's 92, and she's really, really excited to get her hands on the MVP so she can actually see how the interactions are working. She's looking forward to painting with her hands and stuff. So it's for kids of all ages. And
Of
I
course, of course, of
I'm
course.
tall in scale, and then be able to interact with that for the first time, seeing something like that live in front of us. So that's exciting.
Right, right. And I want to take also the opportunity to for anybody that is listening to actually ask questions. And because we do have just 5 minutes left, so if you have anything burning, let's deal with that. So maybe a question. There was a question from Kevin. Was there a reasoning behind going for Unreal Engine instead of Unity, which ShapesXR supports? Is there any advantage why you guys picked Unreal?
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been working with Unity for the past years, and we thought this was a great opportunity to experiment with Unreal and see. We've been very impressed with Unreal's development and with its rendering capabilities. Also, the photogrammetry library that they make available through Quixel is a fundamental aspect, because when we decided to do this work, we decided we would work with our own photogrammetry for the main setting, for the main scenery, and also for the landscapes, for the views.
Right.
But you still need a lot of assets to complement, like all the rocks and all the canyons and everything. And with Unreal, you can use that library. It's a huge, fantastic library that's already completely optimized. And so you could make a whole experience only with that if you didn't need the specific assets in this case, which are the. So Unreal gives us a different quality of experience with less trouble. I'm not saying you couldn't get that with Unity, but I think
Easier.
for us,
Yeah,
it's been
yeah.
a very interesting opportunity.
Amazing. So, guys, I think we are done at the end of the hour. So, I really wanted to thank you for actually telling us this story. For also making not just telling to us, but telling to the rest of the people that are going to experience it. Because I think that it's, as you said, it's not easy, and sometimes accessible to kind of like you might see a video, but it's a different thing to experience it firsthand and be part of it, right? Be a participant in the experience itself. So thank you very much for that, and of course thank you very much for choosing and trying out ShapesXR for your design process, for your iteration. We are really humbled, and actually I invite everybody that is interested and looking to explore similar project, either from a design perspective with Alexander, or maybe other that might be taking into account that photogrammetry background, that storytelling that Studio Paul also brings. Reach out, because I think that this is really a project to keep under your eyes, let's say.
Yeah,
So,
Gabriele, thank you so much for the opportunity, not only for us to show our work that we're really excited about, but especially also thank you for the whole ShapesXR team to create such an amazing tool that has saved us so much time, so much trouble, somewhat money as well, and a lot of white hairs that we had a lot of trouble to communicate and to connect with people remotely and to really iterate things fast and to be able to understand things on a fundamental level between the team, to see what the vision of the directors were like, and to really be able to contribute to ideas of their own. So that tool made this whole collaboration possible, and in a much more efficient way that we like would have done otherwise. So thank you all for developing a great tool like this to enable us, like indie developers, to be creating stuff that is kind of like higher than our punch size, but it's now possible thanks in part to Shapes. So thanks again. It was an amazing.
thank you guys, really a pleasure. So again, guys, for anybody listening, go download ShapesXR, because it's just very easy and accessible way to create. And stay tuned, follow us on YouTube, because there are going to be more of this really insightful live session like we had today with Studio Pro and VRXP. Guys, thank you very much. Best of luck. And as promised, as soon as this is out, I want one. Maybe not with the real fire, but I do want to try it.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Hello,
Thank you
everybody.
again.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.